Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Mortgage Coach Tuesday call. My name is Dave Savage, CEO of Mortgage Coach, and this is always one of my favorite hours of the week. I get to interview someone amazing. Sometimes it's a top mortgage professional that's just killing it in today's market, doing almost everything right. No one does everything right, but doing almost everything right. And sometimes it's an author, a coach, a speaker, and I have the honor of having Steve Scanlon on today's call. I'll bring him on stage to introduce him in just a minute, but an amazing friend and coach. So I do want to remind you guys, this call is being recorded. It will be in our YouTube channel literally within hours. We categorize these, so this will be a Tuesday interview that will be around. I want to set the stage for today's call with Steve, and I think everybody on this call, you're on the Mortgage Coach team, or you are a guest of a mortgage coach. And that means you believe in providing advice. You want to deliver more than rates and fees and a commodity. You want to deliver a better experience to family. And you do believe in using technology. You do believe it gives you an edge. You do believe that that's where families are at. You do believe that Mortgage Coach has a great app and we're a great way to do it. And then many of you are already among America's most successful loan officers. 34% of the top 1% use Mortgage Coach. And those of you that aren't, you want to get there, or you want to have some version of your best, your success. So that means you're leveraging technology to educate families. This screen, this picture on your screen is a first-time home buyer, looking at a rent versus own analysis, deciding, hey, should I buy now? Should I wait next year? Should I wait 3 months? A better experience. This is Jay Crowell in Seattle. And this is what it looks like when a family comes into his office and goes through his perfect loan experience, his perfect mortgage experience. So, these pictures are best practice loan officers using Mortgage Coach to deliver advice. And everybody on this call wants to do this. Unfortunately, not everybody on this call is executing at the highest level. So, one of the things I want to center today's conversation with Steve around are really two things. CRM, because that is technology that when I interview the best loan officers in America, they usually have a CRM and they usually use it pretty darn often. Many of them use it hourly. Most of them use it daily. And, weekly is probably not enough. And if you're using your CRM any less than weekly, it's never. So I do want to ask a survey question right now. And I want to get a sense, if you're on this call, how often are you using your CRM? And when I say hourly, like 3 or 4 hours out of the day. I'm not literally 8 hours a day, every hour. Obviously, you've got hours where you want to be present with a family. You have hours where you're present with a realtor. But, you're using it a lot. I mean, you're having conversations, you're putting those notes. So far, 50% of you have voted. The way I roll when I do calls like this is until 70% have voted, I don't feel as though I have a sense of where the audience is at. So 62%, let's get participation, everybody. The more you participate, the better Steve and I can deliver value. So Steve, we have over 70% of the folks that voted, and here are the results. 10% are just, they're using their CRM more than daily. 50% are daily in their CRM, and 38% are weekly, and 11% are never. So while I do think there's some improvement left to be had there, and there are some probably features in your CRM that you can use more effectively, that's pretty darn good. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I'd have to. What do I think? I think that's actually a little higher than I thought it was going to be. So actually, I'm pretty impressed with that. Now you could ask a whole other question about how they use their CRM, and that would be maybe a different.
Yeah, right.
You should
well, at least
have left some space for. There should have been a question about what is CRM. What does that mean? So maybe we'd have had some of those. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll get a chance to get into that. So here's what I do believe. I believe that where technology is at and our use of it, technology is further than our use of technology. And I do believe that it's moving quick. most of the lenders in the C-suites I meet with, they're rolling out some type of digital mortgage experience so that the family can apply for the mortgage, on mobile devices and computers. They can take pictures of everything. Most of them want their loan officers to use Mortgage Coach. Quicken Loans is, obviously advertising the rocket like there's no tomorrow. It's one thing I am infinitely sure of: everybody needs to learn faster. Everybody needs to get to where you're at today, to where tech is, faster, to have an advantage. And one of my goals at Mortgage Coach is to be that catalyst, whether it's our technology, whether it's our training. We want to be a catalyst to you as an individual, and to all the managers on today's call, to be a catalyst to go from, we have this tech from a human level standpoint we're using here, we need to get there faster. So whether that's an open house experience, how are we showing up and delivering value at open houses, whether that's in our office, whether that's a video, recording videos. And that throws up my next question: how often are you using a total cost analysis for your families? Are you doing that daily, weekly, monthly? Never. So if you're on this call, we know how you're using your CRM. You either pay personally to be on this call, you're a member of Mortgage Coach and you're paying out of your own personal pocket, or your company is investing in you being there. So let's take a little pulse check. And remember, guys, we need to get to 70%. So Steve and I really have a sense of where everybody is at from a technology adoption perspective. This one is all about Mortgage Coach. How often do you give a total cost analysis to a family? Now, I guess, Steve, there is one qualifier here. Not everybody is, got to lead a day. So they could be using the product more, but they just don't have enough leads. So we are over 70%. And Steve, just to give you a perspective of the results, 22% daily, over 50%, weekly. Only 30% are just not engaged. They're not doing it. And I'm not going to ask this question, but I'm sure if I ask the question, who believes that giving a family a total cost analysis is an upgrade to what you're doing today? If you're not, it is an upgrade from what they're getting from other loan officers. And everybody would say it's better. I should be doing it. So I mean, I think that's a great segue to bring in Steve. Steve is a personal friend. Steve is a coach. But more importantly than all those things, Steve is a change agent. His approach to personal development, to helping loan officers do what they know they should be doing, but they don't do, it's different. There's a lot of great companies that are clients of ours that invest in Steve as a change agent to come in and help their loan officers learn new strategies, unlearn things that are, bad habits, and relearn things in a way that's modern. So, Steve, why don't you share your video, jump on stage with me here. I'm gonna hand off the screen to you because, Steve, well, we're gonna have an organic conversation, and there may even be some time at the end of the call to ask Steve questions. He does have some slides, and he does have a structured conversation to help everybody on the Mortgage Coach team take it to the next level. Steve, I'll tell you when I can see your screen.
Can you see
whatever? Hey, Marcy, my GoToMeeting went down. Could you confirm that people can see Steve's screen? Hey, if anybody can let Steve know, can you hear me still, Steve?
Yeah, we can see him, and we have a still of you person, but we see Steve.
All right. I will be back online in a minute, Steve. Go ahead and rock it out, my friend.
Well, can you all see my screen is the question.
No.
Yeah, she said you
Hi,
could.
Steve. We can see you fine.
But not my screen. I'm sharing my screen, Dave, but I don't know that it's being shared.
I don't see his screen yet.
Marcy, can you help with the handoff there? Okay.
Steve, we've lost you.
Issues. Steve, you are off the call. All right, guys. So Steve Scanlon will be back. Hey, Marcy, for whatever reason, this is like the second week where this has happened. When he does get back in here, if you could give him desktop privileges, would you do that for me? All right. So, hey, everybody. So we're going to have Steve Scanlon back on stage here in just a minute. Do want to encourage you to ask any questions that you have. Ron asked to define CRM, so I'm going to do that while we're getting Steve Scanlon back online. To me, it's really simple.
Can you hear that?
We can hear you.
Yes,
you're back.
And
by the way, we can see your screen, but not your video yet.
Oh, okay. I can do that probably.
All right, there you are. All right, I'm gonna step off stage. I'm gonna step off stage and let Steve walk us through some ideas to upgrade our habits around everything. Go ahead, Steve.
All right. Well, I'm grateful to be here. What we just got to practice was I just got to practice a little emotional intelligence. You're being introduced, and I don't know, there was a tech glitch, and obviously when stuff like that happens, you know, those are the kind of things that freak people out. So I got to practice my own level of emotional intelligence, and hopefully staying calm brought me back on. So, you know, it's always an honor to be on these calls and to be able to do this work with Dave. And I think his setup was great. I think the questions were great to the work that I want to do with regard to how do we learn and unlearn and relearn things. One of the things that I wanted to ask all of the participants on the call right now, every one of you, what I wanted to ask is that that you practice something maybe slightly different than you are used to practicing in this kind of a format. Now, I love what Dave said about learning the technology and increasing the pace with which we learn the technology, and I agree with that. I'm going to talk about perhaps what goes on in our brains that precludes us from doing that so that we can unlearn a few bad habits and relearn or learn some of the good ones. But one of the things that I'm going to ask you to practice right now is really practice being present. Really practice being present. And the reason it's a good time to practice that is, you know, I think Dave would like to believe, as we all would, that we can sit in front of a computer screen and completely not be distracted. And I don't know how we would ever measure distraction. Dave, you probably could figure out how to do a quick survey of how distracted are you right now. You know, but that would be a distraction, right? But, you know, we're in front of a computer screen and, you know, you might have your email going and you might be looking at things and you might be casually listening. And I would invite you to practice really being present and listening. Not necessarily because I think I have all these gems to share with you or anything like that, but rather it's such an amazing skill to do that. And by the way, if you're going to close the gap on what you know in technology, it requires us to even continue to practice being present enough to be able to do that. And so we can practice that, especially with a medium like this, because it's so easy to take a medium like this and look around, and there's not a lot of accountability. Nobody really is looking at you. You're looking at me. And so if you can practice it with this medium, we can get better at it with other mediums. So the thing that I wanted to point out is practice attentiveness and practice mindfulness and practice presence. And by practice, I mean, I just believe with all the technology and stuff and everything that we're going through culturally, and ironically, to learn more technology, we might in some ways need to learn how to only focus on one thing at a time and just practice being really mindful of that. And so it's a good time to do that. So today, really, to talk about unlearning and relearning and learning something, I love how Dave set it up with regard to even who uses a CRM. And a huge portion of you all did, and that's great, and how many people use the mortgage coach and their total cost analysis. And a good chunk of you did that as well. What I want to point out right out of the gate is I want to speak to you about emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is a field of study that right before the call, someone had asked me about Daniel Goleman, who is one of the pioneers in this field. But emotional intelligence today has become so broad that you can literally take classes and courses and I think get degrees at Stanford and Yale and Harvard, and it's become a very, very broad field of study, but for a very specific reason. And the reason is this: you do more things in your life based on what you feel and not necessarily what you reason, not necessarily what is logical. So if Dave was able to ask the question, how many people use a total cost analysis? And he kind of did ask the second question, how many people think that using the total cost analysis would be good for them? So when you think, you're using a part of your brain called the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that uses logic and language and reason. But this is not the part of the brain that causes us to change. And it's often not the part of our brain that causes us to take action. We take action from an entirely different part of our brain called the limbic system, in my opinion. And the limbic system is in charge very much of our emotions. Within that system, you have things like the amygdala, your hippocampus, your thalamus. In general, this is the part of your brain that is emotional. And it doesn't use logic and language and reason. So I want to claim to you, and this is sort of a radical claim, that as a loan officer, you're not using the mortgage coach because of the logic of it. It's not that you don't use the CRM because you need to go learn again that using a CRM would be good for you. You already know that. And in fact, in a lot of my workshops, some of you probably have been to some of our workshops, I'm teaching the people this language that says, I know. I know. And I have people repeat that together. It'd be weird to ask you to do that over the phone, but maybe you could do it kind of in the silence of your mind. Say, I know. When you know something, that's great. I mean, and we have to know things. Our prefrontal cortex is obviously a critical part of our thinking and everything else. But just knowing something is not necessarily doing something. And doing something has more to do with how we feel, which is why emotional intelligence is such a powerful field. If you want to increase your business, if you want to get to some new habits, unlearn, relearn, you have to deal with how things make you feel. And I can't tell you how many seminars and workshops that I've been to over all my years, especially in mortgage banking, where, you know, somebody gets up on the stage and says, hey, did you know if you call on more referral partners, you're going to increase your purchase business? And it's funny, I've watched crowds of people write that down like, oh, this is really good. And I look around and I'm going, that's not that good, because you knew that before you entered that building. You don't need to know that anymore. We need to understand what it is we need to relearn about that, or what are things that we need to unlearn and relearn, etc. And that really has to do, that learning has to do with our emotions, our limbic system, and how we engage with that with our prefrontal cortex. So I'm just going to go really quickly here. I think I'm going to go really quickly here. I'm going to just tell you why, just some quick things, why emotional intelligence is crucial to you. This is kind of my way of selling it to you. Maybe I don't have to, but here we go. If you want to improve your relationships, you know, with your partners and your referral partners, you got to grow your emotional intelligence. If you, see if I can move here. If you want the ability to quickly establish productive relationships, quickly improve your emotional intelligence, you're going to take more action and procrastinate less. You know, Dave, you want to throw up a quick thing? It says, how many people would like to procrastinate less? That all has to do with your emotional intelligence. And if we were being honest, that would rate really highly. You're going to take fewer actions that you regret later if you improve your emotional intelligence. And you're going to be able to gauge people's responses better when your EQ, by the way, EQ is the measure, like intelligence quotient. Emotional quotient is the measure of your emotions. And so when you increase your EQ, you're going to be able to gauge people's responses better. You're going to be a better leader. And finally, you're going to make choices that align with the best version of who you are. So to me, you want to grow your business, you want to start utilizing some of these products that you always said you want to do, you want to do some things. It's not about necessarily learning, it's about getting in touch with how you really feel about those things. So unfortunately, emotional intelligence and EQ is often demonstrated. If you can see Michael Scott here, for those of you that watch The Office. The Office, this particular show, and frankly a lot of shows, this particular show just accentuates what low emotional intelligence is all about. And low EQ, unfortunately, it either sells better, it's easier to demonstrate. I like to talk about high EQ as well, but if you want to really learn what emotional intelligence is about, go back and watch episodes of The Office, and you'll really learn what EQ is about. But I want to give you a quick working definition. Emotional intelligence and its measurement, EQ, is understanding yourself and your emotions well enough, and then being able to manage those emotions in a way that's consistent with your core values. So in a negative way, if you say, you get really angry at somebody and go out and send out an email and later on go, oh, I shouldn't have done that. That's low EQ, because later on you would say, my emotions got the better of me. Now that's a stark example, but I will tell you, let me give you a real working example. If you said, oh, that's it, today I'm going to start to use the mortgage coach, or I'm going to get into my CRM, or you could even say something like, I'm going to exercise today. That thought carries with it an emotion. And the emotion often is, to be honest, what if I fail at that? And in fact, I will make a claim, if there's something in your life or your business that you need to do, we often use that word should, right? And we've heard that, and so many people have laughed at that. We always should on ourselves. I should do this, I should do that. When you say should, it's actually an interesting form of low emotional intelligence, because it implies that you have a cognitive ability to understand something that you should do, but you're not doing it. That's the condition, right? That's the should. So something's happening emotionally, but we're not managing it well. So this is a graph. Actually, Daniel Goleman is a pioneer in the field, but this is a graph from Travis Bradberry at Talent Smart. I think it was he or Daniel Goleman, one of these guys that put this together. But you can be, from a self perspective, you can be aware of your emotions, but can you manage them appropriately? And then there's a social side of emotional intelligence where you can be aware of other people's emotions, and then being able to socially manage those as well. And so these are actually 4 areas for people to grow in emotional intelligence. If any of you wanted to take an emotional intelligence quiz, you can actually go get your EQ measured. There are many companies that offer an EQ measurement. Again, Talent Smart is one that I know of. I think it's a pretty good quiz. Again, no offense to them. I think they do a really, really good job. I still find it interesting that those are always self-measurements. And so I've always wondered, if your EQ is low, how accurate could those results be? But anyway, if you want to get your EQ measured, you could. But the idea of improving your EQ, improving your emotional intelligence, will actually help you take more actions in your life, because you're dealing with the part of the brain that causes you to act, and it's not the prefrontal cortex, which is why we all want to go learn more stuff. You might even call Dave and go, man, you need to come teach me mortgage coach again. Well, Dave will probably go do that. But the truth is, that's not why often people aren't using mortgage coach. Or you might want to go learn about how to call on realtors again. And sometimes, even with the CRM thing, I've had many clients go, I'm searching for the perfect CRM. Folks, the perfect CRM is the one you use. And actually looking for perfection is a deflection of taking action. And it's an ignoring of the fact that we're probably not taking action based on how we feel. Okay? So, as I kind of go through these slides here, emotional intelligence, or EQ, and cognitive science together will help us unlearn and relearn stuff. And the whole concept of learning and unlearning and relearning, as Dave and I created this little webinar, it's the relearning piece that I found really, really interesting. Dale Carnegie, I don't have this slide up or anything like that, but Dale Carnegie has a quote where he says, success in business and in life consists not only in the pursuit of excellence, but in the humble willingness to start over. Now, this is one of the greatest industrialists of the 20th century, right? Dale Carnegie, he talks about the humble willingness to start over. How many of us need to start over in the mortgage business? And for some of you on the call, maybe that feels like, that just feels bad. I don't want to start over. I've worked all this hard. I can't believe I got to go call on realtors again or whatever. But listen to Carnegie's words. Success consists not only in the pursuit of excellence, but in the humble willingness to start over. In other words, how do we relearn? Well, in order to relearn something, we often have to unlearn something. We have to unlearn something. And that, my friends, is where the trick begins with emotional intelligence, because unlearning is painful. Unlearning is painful. So many people, again, if you're on the call, you might be saying to yourself, man, I want to grow my business. And maybe you've been to a workshop where you see top panelists of people that, you hear about these top panelists. Dave, you mentioned the top, 1% or 34% of the top 1% use Mortgage Coach. I've always found it fascinating that you get these top people, and I've coached many, many top originators. And with all due respect to those top originators, it wasn't their IQ. It wasn't how smart they were. I don't know if you knew that, but IQ is not correlated in any science that we've ever seen at Rewire to success. Now, for some people on this call, if you just learned that IQ is not equated to success, maybe that makes you go, that's awesome. That's the best news you've heard all day. What is related to success and cognitive science is EQ. And so, but in order to unlearn, you have to have high emotional intelligence, because unlearning something is going to make you feel weird. I often do exercises with people when we do our workshops, and they're dumb little exercises. I make people cross their hands or cross their arms and uncross them, and we do these simple exercises, like if you right now crossed your hands and really uncrossed them and put the other fingers on top and recrossed your thumbs. If you did that and stayed like this for a little while, you go, ooh, that feels weird. It's something simple, it's dumb, but it feels odd to cross your thumbs like that and to cross your fingers like that. Well, the truth of the matter is, when you go to a workshop where you come into something like this, Dave is going to come and teach you the Mortgage Coach, or you're going to learn a new CRM. I always point out to people that your brain didn't even like doing this. Do you think you're going to just unlearn other things like a CRM or whatever without your brain going, that's new, that's different? It feels weird. And if we don't deal with that feeling, then all we do is go feed our prefrontal cortex and think we're going to get somewhere because we learned something. But if to learn something, to start something today, right now, you might be going, that's it, I'm committed. I hope you are. I'm committed to doing something different. I hope you don't come on to this call and just think, I'm just going to listen and casually. No, come on because you're committed to being better. But better is different, always. And people underestimate that. You have to relearn something or learn something and then unlearn something else, which, by the way, completely engages our emotions. Okay? So I want to help you increase your EQ. Now, Dave, I know I did this before, but if I'm going to help people increase their EQ, I kind of talked about this. Why is it so hard? It's hard because the brain actually loves patterns, and I want to talk about that. It loves patterns, and we even have sayings around that in English. We say things like, the devil that we know is better than the one that we don't, right? And that's true. I don't know if you've ever heard that saying, the devil that we know, right? But I always want to point out, it's still the devil, right? And so how do we unlearn that? But we've got to let go of some patterns if we're ever going to relearn or learn in a way where we're actually applying something. So what can we do about it? Well, Dave, I did this last time. Oh, I got to go backwards if I can. I did this last time. I'm going to quickly go over this. I want to tell you about this other part of your brain. I'm going to spend about, let me look at my calendar. I'm going to just spend 5 minutes with this. But again, if there was a time to focus, please focus right now, because your lizard brain, we all have a lizard brain. You have a lizard brain. I have a lizard brain. The lizard brain, many scientists refer to, you'll hear reptilian brain or lizard brain. I know that sounds weird to some of you, but you have a lizard brain. Your lizard brain, and by the way, the reason scientists call it lizard brain is they're referring to some ancient animal, because from an evolutionary perspective, what scientists are referring to, this is the first part of your brain to have evolved, whether you get into that or not. But that's why it's called lizard brain. But its primary reason is to protect survival. So from an unlearning and relearning and learning something new, I want to show you how your lizard brain is affected here and how it affects you learning something. So if you get off the call and go, that's it, I'm gonna engage with Mortgage Coach, I'm gonna do video, I'm going to do the total cost analysis, or I'm going to do something with my CRM, or maybe you're on the call today going, I'm going to start an exercise plan. I'm going to do something. Anything you start new, your lizard brain is going, new, bad. I liked old because old kept us alive. That old thing kept us alive. So what I've pointed out to people is your lizard brain does 4 things very effectively. I think in the last call I did with you, Dave, 6 months ago or so, we walked through this. I know many people on the call have probably heard this before, but it's not a bad refresher course. Your lizard brain has 4 characteristics. It does 4 things all the time, and they're at play right now. So I'm just going to whip through these characteristics. If you want to write them down, again, Dave's going to make the whole webinar accessible to you. But I'm just going to whip through these, and as I do, I want you to think about where this might affect you. So you've got this lizard brain. The first thing that the lizard brain does is it looks for familiarity. We love familiar things. When you go to meetings at your company, do you notice that you sit in the same spot? When you drive to work, you drive the same way. When you go to church or whatever, you sit in the same spot, because we like familiarity, because familiarity brought us to where we are. You're alive and you're here, and so we keep repeating these things that are familiar to us because it kept us alive. So the first thing your brain does is it looks for familiarity. The second thing your lizard brain does is it looks to be right. And in the last call, and many people have heard me tell the mustard story about the gentleman that got in a fight with his wife, and they basically got divorced over the idea that they needed to buy mustard. But here's the thing. We need to be right. The lizard brain's going, you have to be right, you have to be right. And I've pointed this out in mortgage banking. It is often more important to the lizard brain to be right than for us to even be paid, right? How often does it happen, hopefully to none of you, but how often does it happen that you get a condition from an underwriter and you're sitting there going, no way, I know the guidelines, I know the rules, that's not true, and we take up a fight for like a week to, we're writing strongly worded emails with capital letters on it and getting all this emotion out there, and we're trying to be right about something rather than take the 20 minutes to go get the condition. We'd rather be right than be paid. That's our lizard brain. So familiarity, being right. The third is the brain longs to make habits. The brain longs to make habits. The reason habits protect our survival is because it's the least amount of energy that the brain can expend. So we have a lot of good habits. Unfortunately, when all the books are written, I've got a bunch of books on my shelf about habits, and there's some really good ones. All the books are written about bad habits. Nobody wants to do anything with their good habits, because why would you? They're good habits and you shouldn't. But we have tons of good habits. We also have tons of bad habits. The lizard brain doesn't care, good or bad, as long as it can make a habit. And the reason is because it's the least amount of energy that the brain can expend. So if you make that commitment today and say, that's it, I'm going to go call on referral partners, I'm going to start using the cost analysis, that's going to require energy. And your own lizard brain's going, I don't want to spend that energy. And so it tells us stuff like, just do that tomorrow. And then we get into a procrastinating pattern. So in order to start new habits, we have to accept the fact that we have to unlearn something, relearn something else, and it's going to require energy. And then finally, the lizard brain likes to control. We like to be in control. We don't like it. The picture I have up here is when, if your flight get canceled, all of a sudden you feel out of control. If any of you on the call are parents, you know the control part of lizard brain, because our kids kind of make us feel out of control sometimes. And if you look at these 4 characteristics really over the last few years in mortgage banking, familiarity, being right, habituation, and control, all 4 have been attacked at once. Right? Familiarity, I mean, we got to learn all these new forms, and TRID came along a couple of years ago, and it was all this new stuff, and it was a lack of familiarity. And so the lizard brain went crazy, and we're not right anymore. And I already showed you how being right, we have to do that in our business. And the habits, we've got to form some new habits. That's what it seems to me that Dave Savage's whole life is, not only creating this awesome software, it's getting the users to create new habits. And so what I've worked with Dave on is not so much, you can keep teaching the mortgage coach and showing the features and the benefits of doing this, and that's great. How do we get people to understand emotional intelligence and their lizard brain enough to actually deal with the right part of their brain? Because if you don't, you'll just keep learning stuff. Or even like with health, you want to buy a book that tells you that eating a gallon of ice cream right before you go to sleep is bad for you. Like, you can, but you already know that, and I made that up, but, so whatever. But these parts of the lizard brain, what I would ask you to do, and again, if we had more time and I could actually physically be present with you, I would ask you to look at the 4 characteristics, and I can go back through them and tell them again: familiarity, being right, habituation, and control. Those are the 4 characteristics. But the real question is, which of the 4 do you think affects you the most? Which of the 4 affects you the most in your business and in your life? So I'm going to do something, Dave. I think we told you we're going to do this, and hopefully Dave Savage will be smiling at this, because when he showed that graph of having to learn the technology, I think he was talking directly at me. I know I got to learn the technology faster and better, and my own lizard brain, I can make excuses all I want, but I'm getting there. So you all are really the second. I'd love to say you're the first, but you're the second. You're one of the first groups we've ever done this with. For the last year and a half, my company and I have been developing an assessment around the lizard brain. And lo and behold, it's here. Now, it's still sort of in beta test, but if you're sitting there wondering which of the 4 characteristics affects you the most, is it familiarity, being right, habituation, control? Well, guess what? We have a brand new way for you to see this. You can actually take an assessment. And by the way, this assessment will take you 5 to 7 minutes to answer these questions, and we will spit out which of the 4 characteristics based on our questions affects you the most. And all you got to do is go to www.lizardquiz.com. All lowercase together, lizardquiz.com. We want as many people taking this quiz. It's free to you. Go learn your lizard quiz. Now, because we've been working on this for the better part of a year, year and a half, one of the things that we realized is, if you were a part of the first part of the call and you realized that if I'm going to unlearn and relearn and do something new, I have to increase my emotional intelligence or increase my EQ. So what we're now saying, and this is the work and research that we do at Rewire, if you want to increase your EQ, you have to learn to decrease your LQ. Your LQ, or your lizard quotient. So if you want to know what your lizard quotient is, where you're affected by the lizard brain, we've got a quiz for you. You can go on, you can see your number. When the lizard quiz results come up, we've written quite extensively on that. And in fact, that's one of the things we're working on, perhaps how to pare that down into very synthesized information. But you should know your lizard quiz. You should know your lizard quotient. And when you see that one of these characteristics affects you, we even on that quiz give you some learning and some teaching and some coaching to say, what can you do about that? I'm telling you, if you learn to reduce your lizard quotient, you will increase your emotional quotient, And I can go back to that first slide, but all kinds of positive and good things happen there. All kinds of positive and good things happen there. So you get the free lizard quiz today, and we'd love as many people as we can to take it. One of the things that, we've had I think a few hundred people take it now. We're trying to get a lot of people to take it because it's giving us the statistical validity as to where those numbers actually lie. But the information is there, and so I hope you take advantage of it. It's free, so I wouldn't know why you wouldn't. But go learn what your lizard quotient is, and hopefully be helped by the quiz. Okay. So what does all this mean? We have a slide that says, what does all this mean? Here's the deal. Scientists know that when we're born, this is an actual, well, it's sort of a cartoon, but these were based on actual graphs of neural pathways when we're born. When a human being is born, we have very, very few neural pathways put into our brain. Scientists suspect that close to 80% of all of our neural pathways, how we think and feel and act and all that stuff, 80% are put into our brain between the ages of 0 and 8. So if you, again, this is kind of a stark way to say this, but if you ever go see a counselor and the counselor says, oh, tell me what's going on, what happened in your childhood. And I think Hollywood makes fun of that. Like, you're not going to ask me about my childhood. Yes, we are, because it's in your childhood that we learned certain patterns. And specifically, we learned certain emotions. So you could be 50 years old and trying to increase your mortgage business, having to call on more referral partners and realizing, wow, I've got call reluctance, which is a fancy term for fear. The fear of rejection or whatever. Where'd that come from? It came from actually some neural pathways that you put in when you were young. But the good news about this is, and you can see this on here, is we actually have the ability to change our neural pathways. We were given the ability to change, which is why I have a company called Rewire. You can rewire this stuff. Now, can you rewire all of them? No. You can't. We are going to be a certain thing. But with attention and focus and increasing our emotional intelligence, we have the ability to change some of our neural networks. We can change our neural networks. And when we do, we can unlearn and relearn things. And I want to suggest to you that, again, I keep pointing to Dave because obviously we're on the mortgage coach call, but if this platform and this program is something you said, you know what, I should use that more, but you're not, it isn't because you need to learn it better. It's because you've got some neural pathways that say, oh, I'd have to unlearn this, and newness and familiarity. And so the lizard brain kicks in. And so we can actually help you unlearn some of that. And I just want you to know that as a result of the latest and greatest neuroscience, we know that neurogenesis exists. It doesn't matter how old you are. And that whole concept of you can't teach an old dog new tricks is scientifically inaccurate. You can. It doesn't matter how old you are. By the way, it doesn't matter how young you are either. I know some people in their 50s and 60s who, they come into work with us and they're excited. How do I do something new and where do I grow? And by the way, I know some people in their 20s who have quit. The truth about learning and unlearning is, this is the hard part of this, it comes down to free will. You get to choose to do that. Should you choose not to learn and go through and understand your habits, well, then you get to prove this all wrong. And you can go through life saying, I am who I am, and and people that do that, unfortunately, in mortgage banking, they ebb and flow and die with the market. You're sitting around waiting for rates to go back to 3%. And then you can feel like you did it good again. But if you want to transcend that, we have to keep relearning. We have to utilize the tools. And I really appreciated Dave's thing there of saying, how do we, keep learning about this technology? But that requires us unlearning things and learning other things. Okay, so, again, this is something, if you can see the screen here, when you unlearn things, it's like and learn new things, it's like being in a jungle. Think of that jungle. Marching through a jungle is like the jungle of your own neural pathways. When you say, I'm going to do something new, you're cutting through new pathways. The old pathway feels so good. It's like getting on a bike and just riding on a nice, easy path. It just feels good, which is precisely why I always tell people, why January 2nd at a health club is so crazy. Because people are all, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then January 3rd, it's crickets. Why? Because the couch just feels better. It's that simple. So to unlearn and relearn new things, we actually have to go through a period where things don't feel right. Hence emotional intelligence. Hence emotional intelligence. So if you want to increase your emotional intelligence, one thing you can do is learn to decrease your lizard quotient. How bad are you trying to be right? How stuck are you in certain habits? How much do you like familiarity? So again, something that I did last time, I'm going to go through this very, very quickly with you. If I could help you decrease your lizard quotient a little bit, I'm going to give you 6 quick strategies, and Dave, then I'll open it up for questioning. I'm going to give you 6 quick strategies on decreasing your lizard quotient. And by the way, go take our free quiz. Go to lizardquiz.com and take the free quiz, but you can decrease your lizard quotient. And I'm going to give you 6 strategies. Now, these strategies, just so you know, any one of them is a 2-day workshop that we do, and I'm going to go through them in about 2 minutes. And maybe some of you have heard them before, and if so, use this as a reminder. Use this as another way for you to go, okay, so if you want to decrease your LQ, let me do a little domino effect here. Maybe you came onto the call today and said, I like these calls because I want to earn more money. I want to increase my business. Maybe that was your purpose for being on this call today. If you want to increase your business, make more money, all that stuff, have more success, whatever it is you want, you have to do new things that you weren't doing before, unlearning, relearning, which is, by the way, going to make you feel weird. And now you have to say, I have to increase my emotional intelligence to get through that concept of feeling weird. To increase your emotional intelligence, I'm going to ask you to decrease your lizard quotient. And you can learn all about that on our lizard quiz. Okay, and so I'm going to give you some quick strategies to actually decrease your lizard quotient. We're going to go through that right now. Let's see. Number 1, and again, I'm going to just go really quickly here. Learn to rest. We are an unrested culture, and I don't have the time today. I'm looking at the watch here. I don't have time today to even begin to tell people how much a lack of rest is hurting us. How much a lack of rest increases cortisol, or at a minimum doesn't allow our pituitary glands to release cortisol from our central nervous system. And cortisol, many of you know, is the stress hormone. And it's stress that, by the way, crushes your hippocampus. We've had a 400% increase in early onset dementia and Alzheimer's in our country over the last 10 years. I largely think it's because we're unrested. If you want to decrease your LQ, make rest a priority. Because learning to rest, getting good sleep, learning how to rest your brain will decrease your cortisol levels, help you think better, more clearly, increase everything in your business, and certainly decrease your LQ, your lizard quotient. Number 2, learn to enjoy life. Joy is not something that the lizard is very into. It's just into survival. When you actually enjoy things, put fun in your life. And I tell people, I don't care what you like to do. Play with your children, go to the beach, fish, hunt, play golf. It doesn't matter, but put enjoyment into your life because it decreases your LQ. Number 3, again, don't have a lot of space for this one, but be physically well. Wellness. Again, it's not like you haven't heard that one. You want to increase your business. You want to decrease your lizard quotient. Be physically well. There's so many of us, and so many of you on the call, by the way, you're in the people business. But you know what? We start saying stuff like, oh, I don't have the time. I'm too busy. Don't ever be too busy to be physically well. And that means good nutrition, good exercise, and we can go into that one another call, Dave. Number 4, tiny habits. Start small. If you're going to take something from this and say, okay, I'm up for unlearning and relearning, don't go crazy and think you're going to go do a bunch of stuff. Maybe you start by opening Mortgage Coach once a day. Seriously. But small habits, the brain works a little better on small habits. And then lastly, obviously, grow in your emotional intelligence. And I gave you some tricks up front to do that. So these are some strategies. I think I said 6. It's only 5. I'm going to give you 5 strategies, sorry. to actually learn to decrease your lizard quotient. Don't make that lizard as loud. When the lizard's loud, we just look for familiarity. We look to be right. We're searching for just new ways to make habits good and bad, often bad, and we don't get out of them. And then lastly, grow in your emotional intelligence. And by doing so, we learn to relinquish control. For many of you, it's control. And learning to live, knowing that we're not in control of everything, is really what we teach, and one good way to learn to still our lizard brains. So, Dave, I think that's kind of it. I know we only have a little bit of time here, but so you tell me.
Well, first of all, Steve, we still got 10 minutes. So, folks, if you do have questions for Steve, we have time for questions. I'm going to take back the screen and show my desktop. I mean, at a minimum, Steve gave everybody a 5-minute homework assignment, which is just get intentional, get in clear on where you're at from a lizard brain perspective. So I know, I mean, Steve, I have such a hard time with presence. I almost took the test while you were talking. Like, I clicked on the link. I'm like, yeah, I could take this test while Steve's talking here. And then I went, well, no, I'm not going to multitask. I'm going to stay present, stay focused. But I do recommend everybody in this call, hopefully you're not taking it while we're talking. Schedule some time. You know, one of the things I've been doing, and I've been dedicated for going on 40 weeks now, is just improving my personal productivity. And Darren Hardy, who's a good friend and a mentor, I've been doing his Insane Productivity program, but I have been focused on improving productivity. And I know I came out of this call, you know, where I focus all the time is very tactical. It's do this, do that, schedule this jam session, you know, very tactical. You know, usually when we teach people to, you know, improve how they use Mortgage Coach, it's like, you know, write down your why, get really clear on your why. And then we do the tiny habits, you know, create 10 TCAs over 10 days. And I think creating a total cost analysis is a tiny thing to do, but for some folks, they're, you know, that's not so tiny their first time. But I love this call, Steve, because it really helps everybody, and certainly helped me go, you know what? These are all like little things. The symptoms to the problem, you know, is much bigger than that. And if we really want to create change, if we want to become that modern mortgage professional that uses video, and I'm just using technical tools because you guys are all here to learn how to use technology to be a better mortgage professional. But you're right, we got to do things like get enough rest, exercise. So, I mean, this has been fantastic. I would love to throw out a question to everybody right now. You're on this call. Be transparent. You've heard Steve talk. You know, obviously, when he was going through that list of things that, you know, are the things you should do, what's the one that you're weakest at that you're going to work on improving? So I would just love to have you guys collaborate right here. We've got about 6 minutes left. Let Steve and I know, what is the one thing you're going to work on more as a result of the conversation Steve just had to improve your lizard brain? So, Steve, I'm going to throw it back to you. Any closing thoughts? And once we get some feedback, I'll bring that into the conversation. Any thoughts, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, Dave, what I really hope that people got out of today was, I think people come into these calls and everybody does the what's in it for me, right? You're on the call because, you know, what's in it for you. And so I just think that correlation between I want to grow, I want to earn more money, I want to be more successful, I want to, however it is you define success. Growth is change. And change, in order to change, we have to increase our emotional intelligence. And if we don't, we just simply won't change. And if we don't change, nothing bad's going to happen. I know speakers like to say, like, if you don't change, you're going to shrivel up and die. You know, probably not. You're going to be the same. And that's okay, but I think it's one of the most human things to desire to change, to desire to get better. And so if you want to get better, I think it's about really understanding how you improve your emotional intelligence and having some awareness around what your lizard brain says. And what are those characteristics? I love, Dave, that you caught yourself. I half worried about giving that lizard quiz halfway through the thing because there are people that, they're going to go do that. And that's the very essence of not being present. But that's cool. I mean, if you did it, great. You reduce your lizard quotient, you pay attention to that, you start doing some of the things like resting and other things. I think it has an upward positive effect. And we've actually seen that with so many of our clients, that we're not just saying, do this, do this, do this, do this, and you'll have more success. We're actually trying to get to the core of the issue and not just fix symptoms. So my hope is that lots of people if all of you take the lizard quiz, and my hope is that that leads to the kind of changes that gets you back to doing some of the things that you should, including using Mortgage Coach more, or your database or CRM, or what more, and more effectively. So those would be my final thoughts.
Love that. So by the way, you can still share your screen. We could be on stage here together. So here's the feedback from the community. Wellness is my weakest area. I need to get better at taking care of my health. Wellness, being present and not focusing on being right, but focus on growing and developing. By the way, folks, thanks for this, transparency. Do new things, I need to do new things. Taking the quiz right after. By the way, Steve, when you said this, I thought you were going to say you were taking the quiz right now. I was like, get back over here, present. But, do it afterwards. Good job, my friend. Learn, unlearn, how to manage time to be more productive. Learn to have more fun. By the way, I put that down for myself, is I need to make more space and more time to have more fun. That was a big reminder for me. Create a habit of going to bed at the same time every night. Love that, Ed. Rest. Burnout is real. Yeah. By the way, burnout is real, guys. So you gotta get there. Be present. There's no doubt. These mobile devices are the most amazing gift, and they're a huge productivity enhancer. But they're also one of the biggest curses. When you really look at the most valuable commodity in today's world, it's your attention. We say it's your time, but really, no, it's your attention. It's like you could put time into a client interview, but did you really put your presence and your attention? So I like the way you kicked things off, Steve. That was another great reminder of how important it is to just, be present. So guys, first of all, I don't know why anybody and everybody on this call would not go through the Rewire quiz. The Mortgage Coach community is a community dedicated to being the best we can be. I hope to get I know how many's on the call. I know who's on the call. I hope Steve is his mind is blown by the fact that, hundreds of people signed up for this quiz and went through it. I would also ask you, if you're a manager on this call, share this quiz with your team, have a conversation about that. If you're not a manager, but you have a team, and by the way, every loan officer has a team. You've got a processor, you have a branch manager, you have people that are around you. Make sure you share this with them. I want to bring Steve back in a few weeks or a few months and talk about what we learned and where this little journey is going. So Steve, thanks for making the Mortgage Coach community one of the first places that got access to the Lizard Quiz. On a tactical level, everybody, little things, creating a total cost analysis, helping a family make a better decision, it takes 5 minutes, and it can have a lifetime impact. So I do want to remind you, every single day of the week, we have a live training. Tuesdays, we're inspiring you to go to the next level. On Wednesdays, we're doing mobile training. So tomorrow at 11 o'clock, if you want to learn how to have a conversation with your mobile device with a realtor, or you want to learn how to record a video and deliver more value, Wednesday at 11, we have a workshop to do it. Every Thursday, it's just upgrade the Mortgage Coach habit. So we've got a lot of places for you to come learn. I am going to push one last poll question as we wrap it up. Also, as I'm pushing this poll question to see what you thought of today's call, did we surpass your expectations with value, to get a few takeaways? I did want to let everybody know that in the handout section, you can download these slides. And then for anybody that's watching this call on a video, like you're watching it from our YouTube channel, we will put a link to these slides for you to access. We will also put a link to the quiz that Steve talked about. And I'm also going to put a link to a couple of Steve's other videos that we've done in the past. You know, I've interviewed Steve a number of times. I did a little search by your name, Steve. We've been having this conversation for 4 years, brother. In fact, the call that we did 4 years ago has been watched, 780 times. So appreciate all the value you bring.
Appreciate it. I'm waiting for my check in the mail. Come on, man. What gives? I'm teasing. Dave, I got to run. I got to get out of here. Please share those results with me. I've got to jump. I'm very grateful to all of you, and I hope all of you take the quiz. If we can do anything, Dave, rewireinc.com, let us know, and we're grateful to be here.
Take care, everybody. Have a fantastic week, and hope to see you on another Mortgage Coach training experience. Bye now.
Bye-bye.